morning to all of you. I'm Nida Parveen and I'm an alumna of IIM Bangalore, and I will be your host for today. Starting this week, we plan on behalf of WICCI, which stands for Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce in Industry. We plan to speak to women leaders we admire and bring to life their experiences on journey to leadership. Today, I have a very special guest, Mrs. Shobha Moni, founder partner of Triad Software. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for being on board today. I also have my co-host for today, Ms. Monica Rekhan, who along with the members of WICCI have made this event possible on ground. Monica, if you can talk in brief about WICCI and its objectives.
Thank you, Nida, for such a sweet and kind introduction. So to talk about WICCI briefly, it's, as you said, it's a national business chamber especially for women, right? But the way we should imagine it is it's an industry voice for policy change, specifically addressing women entrepreneurs as well as women businesses. But to drive any policy change, we need to have a deep understanding of the current ecosystem. That could be through primary research or a secondary research. But more importantly, it is important that we have a dialogue among the right stakeholders, say entrepreneurs, industry leaders, as well as policymakers. So this initiative, Leadership Insights, is what precisely that one step forward towards attaining that goal. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Nida, thank you, Monica, for this very warm welcome to the WICCI's introductory sessions on leadership, I understand. Yeah. So I look forward to sharing my thoughts, and hopefully my reflections will be meaningful to the larger audience.
We have no doubt, ma'am. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Shobha ma'am. Before starting the session, I would just like to give a brief introduction of Shobha ma'am. So she's an alumni of IIM Bangalore Class of 1985 and founder partner of Triad Software, which is a boutique consulting organization operating in Dubai for more than 15 years. That is huge. Triad is also a multiple award-winning partner to Sage Group. Personally, she enjoys painting and is also a classical music enthusiast. And ma'am, I've seen your sketches. Those are amazing, like really. Okay, without further ado, me and Monica have a lot of questions. So we'll straight jump into it. Monica, over to you for the first one.
Yes. So ma'am, we have to start with Triad for sure. So if you could tell us, how did it begin? Not only the idea generation, but also the mental preparation for transitioning from a professional with a paycheck to an entrepreneur where, you have the fear of capital loss as well as uncertainty. How did you go about both these things?
Triad as a company is co-founded by me and my husband, who's my life partner and my partner in crime now. So he threw in the towel first. He's a chartered accountant, I'm an MBA, and we both had what the family would loosely call as respectful jobs. Okay, and we both come from the typical middle class government organization, working father, housewife, mother. So the very concept that you could actually throw your job out and start something on your own was something which was earth-shaking. Yeah. So actually for about 6 months, we did not tell anybody that we have, launched on our entrepreneurial journey, because we wanted to sort of let the cat out of the bag very slowly and very tactfully. So I would say that we did it in steps. So I was working for Satyam, which is now called Tech Mahindra. And Money was in the process of moving between jobs. And so it was convenient for him to let go of his job first and to start and take those initial baby steps that we had to take as part of Triad. So that's what we did. We did it in steps. So I continued to put the bread on the table, so to speak, for about 2-3 years until Triad could afford to have me full time.
Oh, that's really wonderful to know, ma'am. I mean, starting from a middle class family and having ambitions that, of reaching the stars, and here you are, you prove yourself. But I had a question, like, So there are so many incidents in a startup journey, like something you cherish, you get your first customer and you're so excited. You recruit your first employee and you're more excited, you're getting your checks, you're getting your revenue. But I want to understand, ma'am, how did you manage to get your first customer? Was it through relatives, friends? How did you manage to do that? Because it's really very difficult, to get that first person.
You're absolutely spot on. Yeah, absolutely spot on. See, when we started Triad, the biggest challenge was actually in engaging and getting the right employees on board, because we are a service-oriented organization. So the quality of people we bring on board was critical to our success. And so I think the first few employees who came on board came on a leap of faith because of us as people, rather than Triad as a company, because Triad as a company had no credibility, no presence in the market at that point in time. The second question about you getting your first order, absolutely. In fact, we started in 2004, and I think we got our first order about 4 to 5 months after we started the company, and we cash broke even maybe about 2 years after we started the company. So there is that little mindset of having to wait and grow the company on a long-term basis, which is critical. And the very first order does not usually come from people who know you too well. Okay, and I mean this with a very good sense, because what happens is that, especially friends and relatives who know you extremely well, but not very sure about the longevity of what you're attempting to do. Okay, and they don't want to mess around with that close relationship you already have and enjoy with them. So I don't hold this against them. I'm just saying that this is a reflection of human psychology. Yeah. At the same time, you can't go to strangers, because strangers don't know you at all. So you sort of got to find a middle ground where you have sort of met with people who have bought into you, and who will not mind engaging with you, and at the same time they're not so close, that they will find it difficult to take on that risk of engaging with you. So that's really what happened. So the very first customer had actually met me for a very small requirement when I was still in Sakib. And I actually helped him out of goodwill, he was in Bahrain. So I actually helped him out find an alternate player. And I said, look, your requirements are far too small and your budgets would never be, met if I'm going to give you a quotation. And I actually helped him out a little bit. And so when we started, he heard about it, and we were casually meeting on some other forum because of the Chartered Accountant Forum. And I said, yeah, we've started now. Now we can handle something small. He said, oh, really? I got this requirement. Would you like to handle it? So it was literally a phone call, to Bahrain, where we got our first order. So I think that goodwill is really what comes back to you.
Oh, that is very interesting. Generally, whenever we think of something, we go to our families and friends the first, right? We don't think of actually picking up a call and knowing an acquaintance where we've worked over the years. And that idea of the second part of helping someone not in respect of getting a return, and then maybe that's karma that comes back. So So the part that you said about growing, right? We talked about idea generation. We talked about the first revenue. What about the scaling part of it? Were there any challenges and things that we should keep in mind, or our viewers should keep in mind while scaling that comes in?
Yeah. So the very first business plan is I would say a combination of having an idea of what you want to do, and at the same time being open to changing your mind. Okay, because when you do get into the business, you discover opportunities, and you also discover what you can't do. Okay, so but then you can't start the business without some idea of what you want to do. So it's a bit of a dilemma. So you actually have a plan of what you think you should be doing, and at the same time you're sort of going to keep your antenna up in terms of spotting potential opportunities which you have not thought of, and also right sizing your services so that you don't do something which you can't afford to do. So I'll give you an example. In fact, the very first order that we closed was with a contracting company. Okay, and we had an ERP solution which we genuinely believed would meet their requirements. But then when we got in closer, we found that the contracting market has got such a unique set of requirements. The standard ERP would never meet those requirements at all. So we actually, the very first ERP order that we got, we actually went and gave back the money and gave back the licenses. Okay. And we had to sort of go over a 6-month timeline with our primary vendors in order to sort of, commercially rectify that as well. But that has stood us in very good stead, because that finance manager who moved 2 jobs has given us business. Okay. So what I genuinely believe is that creating value is critical. Okay. Quality of what you're choosing to offer is critical. Okay. And looking after your people is critical. I think without these 3, are really the foundations to a good business being set up and to thrive.
Yeah, and apart from that, what I understand is what you're saying is my strengths also of knowing what I can deliver versus I not is a reflective journey that one has to be careful around.
Reflective journey, absolutely. And also you realize, like the early stages, we realized, oh, we can't do retail. Why? Because they need a 24/7 support, and I don't have that grassroots service team to do that. So this kind of a more deeper understanding of what you can and can't do is something which you should be able to reflect on. So if you have a business plan which is cast in stone, I feel that you miss those opportunities, to right size yourself and also to go into other areas which could be potential opportunities. So that is as far as the, the startup is concerned, the business plan side is concerned. Scaling up is another thing altogether, because what you need to do is, it's very easy to say, I can do this job the best. And that's why we become entrepreneurs, because we feel we can hold the entire piece, on our own, right? I can bring the business in, I can deliver, I can service, I can manage my relationships. And so it is with that thought and mindset that you really start. But then when you want to scale up, I think the biggest mindset that we have to develop is, how do we step back? Okay. How do we scale back our conscious operational side and participation into the business, which means that you are going to bring both people and processes on board. Okay. So the very first step is to say that if I am not doing the job, how will I measure the health of this process? And processes are largely about, where will I collect my revenue, and how do I make sure my cash flow is being maintained, because cash is king. Yeah. And because it's not just the profitability of what you do. Yeah. And then the second part of it is delivery. Whatever you choose to sell, you have to deliver. So how do I deliver on time? How do I deliver to the quality expectations of my customers? And how do I measure the fact that I'm doing it correctly? Okay. So that's the second measure. The third measure is in terms of any potential liabilities. So those controls have to be with you. So for instance, contracts can only be signed by the partners. It can't be signed by anybody else. Or so those, wherever you will incur potentially a liability, is something you may still need to hold very close to you. And I think usually the last bit that you let go of is really the banking. So typically what happens is you let go of the delivery, let go of the business development. You will still manage the rest of it to yourself, and then slowly you will let go of that as well. So I think it's a continuous journey. I would say we are not yet there. Yeah, we are getting there, but we're not yet there. Yeah.
So I understand the revenue. I understand the delivery. Potential liabilities also. Okay. What is the last one? Sorry.
The management and visibility and transparency of the cash, the bank. Okay. Oh. How do you manage the banking? Because you're then going to be signing checks, which is a reflection of, again, a potential liability. So those are the things that, we need to, again, let go of in the very final stages.
Very, very interesting. I was seeing this as growing. The way you were saying this, it's about letting go because you are scaling. That perspective is a very, very fresh shift in my brains. So one last part on this professional journey would be, we understand it is so important as an entrepreneur to never give up, right? And I'm sure there will be a number of times where you would have, wanted to do so. Is that one? And second, if such a scenario comes in, what is your mantra? Like, how do you cope up with it? And so if someone who is in that journey, how should they hang on and, hope for the best? What is your advice on that?
See, I think you always think not just in the professional entrepreneurial journey, but even in the personal journey. What do we do? We essentially say, what if, and you have a plan B. What is the worst scenario? I think it's a good idea to always think about the worst scenario and say, if this happens, what do I do? I mean, then I think about a plan B. Okay. And once you do that, then actually it reduces the level of what I would call as the tension, or whatever we may choose to call stress. We use different words for it. Because the reason you have a stress about running a business, or the tension associated with running a business, is when you don't feel in control. Okay. And that holds for everything in the personal lives as well. Okay. We feel the stress only when we don't feel we are in control. So a sense of control, a modicum of control, can be sort of, embraced if we have a question in our head saying, what is the worst scenario which is going to happen? Okay, the cash flow. Okay, this is not going to happen, and this is not going to happen, and this is going to happen. That is my worst scenario. And what would I do in that worst scenario? So you think of the possibility of handling that worst scenario, and then you put it out of your head. Okay, and then you compartmentalize your feelings so that you are able to be productive, because stress is very counterproductive. Okay, so then you're productively, going forward. I think, for instance, COVID has taught us a lot of lessons, right? In terms of holding on to your employees, or in terms of managing cash flow. Before that, we had this huge recession, in 2009, 2010. Yeah, and we were much younger as an organization. And I feel that when you go through these difficult times, you get stronger. Yeah, you go closer to your employees, and you get stronger with your customers, and you actually become stronger as an organization.
Definitely. And I'm just starting to think, 2004 it started, 2009 there was recession, and still you were managing your own journey. I mean, this is incredible. At any point you didn't feel, okay, I should just get back and start doing what I was doing earlier?
Oh yes, absolutely. Oh yes, it was earth shaking, to say the least. Yeah, and we would literally sit around the table in the office and find out, if an employee has got a specific requirement to pay a school fee or something, and the employees would come up with ideas about where we could bill customers for small values, mine an existing customer, because new customer acquisition literally came to a halt. So we had to engage with our existing customers and see where we could actually, mine them and take care of the cash flow. So it was a lesson, and we have actually become a lot smarter, I would say, because even today, those lessons continue, and you are continuously, your eyes are on the Excel in terms of how you manage those things. So I think it taught us a lot of very good lessons. And we were also having a lot of personal, challenges at that point in time, because we were both in the age group where we had aging parents around the same time. So, so it was a combination of many different things that came together, I remember, around that time. But I think overall, when I look back, it is a positive reflection of what we managed to achieve. So some of the partners who closed down, their customers, they moved to us. Okay, so that's why I said that, Triad, I think, as an organization, grew stronger. Okay, as a result of that.
A lot of women would relate to it, especially women leaders, women entrepreneurs. So there are a lot of expectations that we as women, like societal expectations, cultural expectations, even personal expectations of our own, we have to adhere to them. So did you have to battle any such expectations? And if yes, how did you manage that?
See, I think if we look at two ends of the spectrum, okay, now I'm meeting young women who are choosing not to get married or not to have children because they want to pursue their career options. This is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is I'm meeting qualified candidates who have chosen to be a homemaker. Okay, now I don't think there is anything right or wrong about the choices we make. Okay, I think these are very individual choices. Why? Because in a day, we have 24 hours, and assuming you sleep for about 7-8 hours, you have the balance hours left to decide what you want to do with those hours in a lifetime. Okay. The reality is that when you spend time with people, relationships are built. Okay. And that holds for children, that holds for your spouse or partner, life partner, it holds for your in-laws or anybody else who you feel is a significant element in your life. Yeah. So it's a matter of choice that we decide whether to outsource the logistics of looking after them and do not feel the urge to be a part of those shared experiences with them. Okay. Because those can never be outsourced. Yeah. So it's purely, it's very clearly a matter of choice that you do. And maybe you somewhere, most of the people, they do a half in between, okay? Veering towards this side or that side, right? So it's all a matter of your collective comfort. You as an individual, along with your life partner, because he is the most significant person who's affected by the choices you make. And I think, and a larger family circle. And if we are choosing to explore more boundaries, I would say that get your support systems in place so that the logistics does not drag you down. Okay? You may still have to spend quality time, but when you come back from in the evening from a hard day's work, you can sit and spend fun time with the children without having to clean the house or cook a hot meal. Okay? Because those are touch points where the children do not miss you. Okay, so it really doesn't matter whether the hot meal comes cooked by somebody else or cooked by you. If in that time you can actually sit and spend some time with the children. So what I'm trying to say is that while there is no easy answer, and it is a juggling business, and it is a messy business, and you will always have those points in time when you wonder whether you are right in, say, traveling when the child is sick, for instance, which has happened to me many times. I used to travel continuously when I was in Satyam. Yeah. But then I had a lovely housekeeper to whom I gave a gratuity scheme. Okay. So she stayed with me for 18 years. So after I identified that she was ideal for the children, so it became increasingly difficult for her to leave me as the years passed by. And then she also felt very comfortable with us. And I would say she's a gem of a person. And we also had to let go of things which are not important in the context of a child being looked after well. So the fridge, for instance, is a mess, but I choose to ignore it. Okay. If there is a wastage of food, I say, what is the proportion of what I'm earning? Okay. And let me not split hairs on things which are not important. If we don't do that, then you do not build that bridge with the children. And that is the reality. Okay. They would be looked after. They will grow up safely, comfortably, with clean clothes and hot food. But the relationship that if it's important to you, again, I said, if it is important to you, it doesn't have to be, okay? So, and how much it's important to you is, again, a very personal equation that you decide. But that's the way I look at it. So I think we need to respect whatever choices women make, because it is a very individual journey. And whenever women are choosing to work and be a house keeper and a mother and a wife, then we need to have maybe some support systems which as a society we are able to bring into the picture, so that it is not just driven by the smartness of one individual who manages to take care of those things. As an institution, we are able to help them with some processes. So that would really help.
We're just in a country which goes after education so much, and the IIT and the IIM and the brands that we go after and spend so much of constructive time of our adulthood achieving that and taking that. Does it really matter in the long run is what we want to figure out, that how much of that has helped in your journey, and is it like a must have, or how is that shaped you? So both the pros and the cons of it, and whether it is really imperative, if you could shed light on that, it would be great.
Okay, so coming through a competitive landscape where in one of the premium institutions, like an IIT or IIM, first is it boosts your confidence. Okay. Boosts your confidence tremendously. Whether right or wrong, you feel you can do it. Okay, which is, I think, important for success. Now, once you get into the program, I think because there is a packing fraction, which is quite intense, okay, you learn really to multitask and manage with fuzz. When things are not clear, you learn how to work with the system. Okay, you learn to speed read. Okay, you have a huge case study which is dropped on you the next day morning. You're supposed to thrive. Okay, yeah. Even today, I use the speed reading when I get a contract, and people wonder how I pick those three things without, in a matter of minutes. I'm not a legal person. Okay, but I think it's a life skill that I've picked up because of my MBA program. And finally, for me especially, since I came into the program as an absolute fresher, I had not worked at all. Okay, everybody was at least 3 to 5 years senior to me. Okay? So to me, the learning of, and I came from a college which was a nuns convent college. So for me, the learning at a life level, when I came out, was tremendously, it was there. So I think when we look at a professional education, the confidence, your life skills about teaming and working together as a team to solve problems, other life skills like speed reading, exam taking, okay, your resilience because you fail some things, and it's a huge blow because you come feeling you are been so good, and then you find that you're pretty average in the class. Okay, it's a real, sizer, yeah. And do you thrive despite knowing that you are average? And so what I'm trying to say is that, so it's not just the management principles of Kotler that you learn in a textbook. Okay, there are a lot of other things that work around it, which I think a premium institution gives to you, which is precious. Okay, will it make a difference if you don't go through that? Some people may have those skill sets without being rooted through a program like this, but this is, I think, an institutional way of giving you those skills. Okay, so I think there are many smart people who are not done IIT or IIM. Okay, extremely successful in life, and there are many people who do their IIM, and you meet your alumni, and you find there is so much of a difference, right, in where they have achieved. Yeah, so I think the soft skill factor contributes increasingly as you go ahead in your life, and even things like your moral compass in terms of your what do you consider right and wrong, okay, and how do you work with the grays, okay, because blacks are whites, blacks are blacks, and whites are whites, and nobody needs a moral compass to deal with that. But the moment you have a gray, I mean, where do you pitch yourself? Yeah, those are elements which pay back big time, over a period of time. So we may not realize it when you are 3 years, 5 years, even 8, 10 years out of your program. Okay, but it makes a lot of difference. The payback comes back tremendously. I can see how the same set of people have come back in my life. Okay, and you would think it never happens. Okay, and they come back to optimize it or help you in so many different ways. So when you actually you feel very wise when you're as old as I am.
We are talking about policy change, right? Finally, it has to be on advice, and it may not be the last section. Nida, feel free to join in if you want to have more questions. I'm sure we have some time with the ma'am. So one of the things that we wanted to ask you was, as a society, cumulative individual actions create results, right? Create change. So what is one advice that you would give to different stakeholders? I'll name it out, and that you could give them so that we could give it back to the audience and they can think and, try and implement in their life. So say as an aspiring women entrepreneur like Nida or me, what is one thing that we should consider in order to build, in order to plan for the success for tomorrow?
Okay, so you are referring to the professional success as an entrepreneur?
Yes. While I'm aspiring for it, what is one thing that I should do as an aspiring entrepreneur so that I can be successful? What are the things that I should think about?
Okay, I think the critical thing is to decide what is it that you're going to be building a business on. Okay, and the fundamental element there is, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And it sounds like a very simple statement, but that is what really doesn't get very clear answers when you speak to entrepreneurs. Okay, so don't start something. You could start something if you're passionate about it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but then be very clear that it may not scale up or it may not be a commercially viable business. Yeah. So the critical thing is to identify what is that unique problem that you're going to solve with a unique solution. Okay. And in that journey, you have to find out who else is solving this problem. And why is that not good enough? Because if you say there is no competition, then you have not done your homework. Okay. Because either people have not got into solving the problem because it's not viable. Okay. or people are solving the problem with, horizontally different options, which you need to be aware, because those are the replacements that a potential consumer will think about. Yeah. So which is the problem and what is your solution? Okay. Then coming to the number part of it, what is it that is going to make it commercially viable? So what are those revenue lines that you will think about in order to monetize that product or service? So that leads you to certain interesting discussions about your break-even points, because there is a certain break-even point you need for your product or your service to be viable. And that will be a reflection of what you need as a throughput, your systems in place or your people and processes in place to be able to deliver for that level of engagement. So, but the entire journey starts with a decision about what problem you're trying to solve. Okay. And then the costing and the margins and the revenues that you're going to drive against it. Okay. And a very clear plan in terms of doing some dipstick measurements, because not everything would be clear. So you may have to check out 3 things before you sort of reconfirm an assumption or a number. So that also could be a part of the journey before you sink in too much. Yeah. So that could be a part of the journey as well. And I think this is my personal belief that if you put in your funds for the initial seeding of getting started up and going, it gives future investors a lot of comfort that your skin is in the game. Okay? It also gives you a lot of comfort because you can decide to change your mind a little bit about what you're doing. Like I mentioned, when you get in, you will suddenly find that there's more clarity about your business plan. Okay, it gives you that freedom to do that. And I always feel that you can only take other people's money when you're really, really clear that this is a viable, running, scalable business. Yeah. So that is the mindset. So now the question is where do you get that money from if you're trying to start something on your own? So here again, a plan B system works very well. So when I left Satyam, I said, oh, here is my end of service benefit. And that's I can pretend I'm getting my salary for, X number of months. Okay. I can pretend that. Yeah. And after so many months into this pretense, if I find things are not shaping up, then I literally, do my CV once again and I go to Wipro, Infosys, HCL, whatever, and that's my plan B. Yeah. So I think we should not think about our cash flow on a daily basis when we start our journey, because that is very acidic and it takes away productive time. Okay. And if you have a partner, they should also buy into it. I think it's easier for women in that sense because your husband, your partner will support. I think it's more challenging for men to do this because women may not understand why the salary is not coming every month. So this is especially when salaried employees are, taking off on their own. It's relatively easier, I think, for some communities, because when you start a business, everybody is running a business. So you have that support of that community. For us, we are, Tamil and Brahmins, so the very thought that, a business can be started off as a concept had to be sold, internally within the family as well. So those are some challenges you get, which are specific to where you come from and what backgrounds you come from.
Let's say someone in my family, if they're starting, what should I be very careful for? Or, what is the kind of support that I can provide?
I think as long as you have both identified your cash flow for the next X number of months, I would say, you plan for 6 months to a year if it's a brand new business, not less than that. And you must have a collective, I would say, accountability to each other, where you say that if this does not happen, then he's happy to move to an alternate way of making that happen. So that is I think it's a matter of communicating and having that broad understanding. And after that, I think if they are capable and they have got a bright plan and things are happening, then it's like any other job. From a house perspective, I don't see any reason why he cannot or she cannot come back and do what happens generally in a household. Because you're an entrepreneur, that doesn't change. You're still going to be, if you cook breakfast, you'll still cook a breakfast. The evenings you play with your children, you'll still play with the children. That doesn't change. Your personal life doesn't really change in that sense. If you're setting up both as husband and wife together, then there may be some more adjustments that have to be made. But otherwise, your personal life really doesn't change. To some extent, it affects you psychologically, especially you carry a card and people say, what, Triad? Who's Triad? And then today people are recognizing, but that time, after carrying a very big brand on your card, suddenly you drop. Those are little things that we have to be comfortable in our skin. But otherwise, I think it's a matter of communicating to each other as partners and being accountable for what we think will happen, and having an honest, stock take, saying it's happening, it's not happening, what do we do next?
And what about, and the last stakeholder should be ideally is the policymaker piece. Like, what do you think structurally that, say, governments or people who can influence larger sectoral decisions, what can they help, if at all you think there's a requirement on a macro level? In a micro level anyway, things go on regularly.
So one is, I will reflect on this from two perspectives. One is from the way entrepreneurs and women can set up. And the second is really in terms of the support systems they need, not just for being an entrepreneur, but for being in the workforce. Yeah, these are two fundamentally the same when it comes to the personal side of the equation, right? Now, from a women entrepreneur, I know there are a lot of subsidies and a lot of, a lot of facilities being provided from a banking perspective or from a financing perspective, and all of these are there. You are in a shorter queue, and all of those are very much there. I think we cannot expect every woman entrepreneur to come with a business management background. Okay? And I can see so many micro businesses where women entrepreneurs can be very, very independent, running their own show extremely well. But what they do need is that, I think, some form of a management layer on demand, which can be provided by, say, a generic board on demand, for the lack of a better term, So, and these could be, voluntary, roles. So, if, for instance, if I am a well-known lawyer, okay, and I will give X amount of time, to helping women entrepreneurs understand the contracts that they're signing. Okay, if I am a finance manager of a large multinational, I put in my time, X number of hours, to just review their P&L and balance sheet and make sure that their house book is in order. Okay, so if we can build that layer to support these entrepreneurs, so that their businesses, when they do run their businesses, they are healthy and they are cyclical and they are scalable and their customers are sticky. There's so many things we learn because of our experience can easily be given, I feel, it's a form of giving back, right? So this is something we can definitely do. We can definitely do this even within the institutions we are. So for instance, if a relatively young IIM alumni is coming out and starting something, I think an older alumni can easily step in and say, hey, I have this background, I know how to run a solution services company in the Middle East, if that is a relevant element which is meaningful. So those are the structural components that come to my mind. And I think from a personal perspective, we have to see how paternal leave can be brought in when children are born. I think bringing up a kid is not just a mother's business. I think it is the parents and the family's business. Yeah. So I feel that it will help tremendously, even for the father to bond with the child. I mean, imagine the plight of the father who's not given that opportunity. I feel sorry for them, genuinely. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So I think paternal leave is something which we can, as a policy, drive and make it happen. That would be wonderful. Okay. The other thing I find is that workers come in clumps. So if you see, like, there is I was just looking at Manyata Tech Park, in Bangalore, because we have a place close to that. You got a huge collection of women, I can see them, walking on the roads and getting off the buses. And so if you can have a hub and spoke kind of a combination by which childcare, quality childcare, is made available very close to your place of work. Okay, so you're literally moving with the child to work, and you can even go and feed the baby and come back. Okay, or check on the baby and come back. Now, from the corporate side, those could be built in as well. So you could say, yes, maternity leave is X number of days or months, but then when you come back, a dear employee, for 6 months, you can actually take, 2 1-hour breaks. Okay. And you sort of adjust the time over whatever has to be done. These are very easy to incorporate. I think it's only a matter of putting your time and thought to it. We have done this informally, in fact. So in fact, we had 50% of our workforce are women. Okay. And we have 7 nationalities in a workforce which is just 20 people strong. Okay, so that leads to a very interesting discussions. And we actually had one of our employees who would cycle off to her house, feed the baby, and come.
It was really wonderful, learning so many things. Professional, we talked about idea generation. We talked about, getting your first customer, then scaling up. Personally, I heard so many things, paternal leaves, advices for the future generations of tomorrow. I mean, so many things. I mean, it was wonderful having you, ma'am. Really, it was very inspiring. I'm sure everyone in the audience who's going to see this is going to come back whenever they need a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of joy, and when they want to smile. But before I end, I just want to say that everyone watching, mostly it is the women audience, the women entrepreneurs, the women leaders, the aspiring women leaders. I want to tell you, you have the strength, you have the passion, you have the courage. Just take the step forward. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this warm session. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I wish every one of you the very best.
Thank you, ma'am.